Hi, I'm Joe Leonardo. I'm an audio engineer who mainly works on editing, mixing, sound designing, podcasts, some post production too as well, but mainly podcasts. I've worked with a lot of corporations for companion podcasts for a project they're working on, even a couple TV shows and having their podcasts alongside the release of their TV show, and a lot of hobbyists that have a podcast on a topic, a niche topic they're interested in. So I've worked from corporate clients in studios all the way down to people recording off Zencaster or Riverside. So I've seen the gamut. So with this video, I basically just want to go over a few techniques you can do on your own to make your podcast sound more professional without having to hire someone like myself who's an audio engineer. But if you do want to hire an audio engineer, feel free to reach out. So there you go. I'll have my contact information in the description of this video. That said, enough promoting myself. Let's go over a few things you can do to have your podcast sounding a lot better. All right, before we begin, I want to minimize myself here. Put myself in the corner. There we go. Okay. Basically, what we're looking at right here is Pro Tools. It's the industry standard for a lot of audio editing, especially in music, post-production, and in podcast as well. Some people use Logic. Some people even use Audacity. Any DAW will work. Don't feel like you have to go out and spend hundreds of dollars on a really nice DAW to edit your podcast. You don't. We're going to use Pro Tools in this video. I'm going to use also their stock plugins as well. So you don't need to worry about buying plugins or, downloading a bunch of cracked Waves plugins and giving your computer a virus. So standard Pro Tools plugins will work. Standard edition of Pro Tools here. Okay. So you'll see some sends here on the side. Just ignore that. That's basically going into the OBS system of how I'm recording. So first thing we're going to do is we're just going to import our audio. How we can do that is just a Command-Shift-I, and that brings up your import window. I'm using a podcast I've worked on in the past that is all recorded remote over Zencaster. A free version of Zencaster gives you MP3s, and I just convert those to WAV files. When I do my converting, I typically like to convert to 24 bits and 48 kilohertz, so 2448. You can do 44.1, but for editing, I recommend doing 48, and you can either export to 44.1 or just leave it 48. It's just you want to leave yourself that headroom. So now that you have your audio imported, the first thing I like to do, select all, Command-G, and then just group them all together. So what this basically does is now these individual tracks have turned into one track. That makes life really easy when moving stuff around if things are out of sync. If you make a bunch of edits, you can also go up here to clip, and then you can group them so they become like one box. That makes editing a lot easier. Now let's just listen to what we have here. This is only, 25 seconds? So let's just listen to it.
Like that.
I have about 1,000 of them in a shoebox under my bed. So I'm hoping that's a good idea. And Matt, this is a movie we should write. Is the guy who starts picking off people who have the cards, so his card goes up in value.
Yeah,
like he starts going around and
that's a great idea. We'll never do it.
Yeah,
we'll never get around to it.
Called Price to Move.
Price to Move. Yes,
Move, like it.
Okay, so this snippet, let's just say it's a whole 1 hour recording. Everything I tell you is basically just going to be repetitive. First thing I notice, volumes are kind of all over the place. So let's just adjust the clip gain. So on another screen here, I have the mix window open, and you can get this by having holding Command and hitting equal. That will toggle this on and off. So having this on, you can see I have no plugins in. I just have the sends going to OBS out. Now, if I play it,
like that,
I have about 1,000 of them in a.
you can see
under my bed. So
that everybody's a little bit off. We're going to adjust the clip gain. When I say clip gain, I'm not going to touch the
guy who
track
picking off
faders.
people who
I'm
have
going
the
to
card,
adjust
so his card goes up in value.
Yeah,
He starts going
the.
around.
It's a great idea. We'll never do it.
Yeah,
but
actually,
it's
it's
a
we'll
great
never
called
get around to it.
called price to move.
Price to move.
I'm going to
Yes.
adjust
like
it
Like
here.
that.
I have about 1,000 of them in a shoebox under my bed.
So what I'm trying to do
Around
is
it.
It's
just
a great idea. We'll never do it.
Yeah.
But it's
It's
a great
have
called-
idea.
these hit around minus 10 dB
Yeah.
He starts going
roughly.
around. And
It's a
killing.
great idea. We'll never do it.
Yeah.
But
All
it's
right.
a great
We'll
called-
idea.
never get around to it.
Like that.
I have about 1,000 of them in a shoebox under
So
my bed.
everybody's
So
kind
I'm
of
hoping
hitting
they-
minus 10,
I-
give
that's
or
a good
take
idea.
5
and Matt,
decibels.
This is a movie we should write. The guy
Guess
who
I
starts
can go a
picking
little
off
lower.
people who have the card, so his card goes up in value.
Yeah,
He starts going around. And
That's a
killing
great
them.
idea.
Let's
We'll
go
never do
lower.
it.
Yeah.
But it's a
It's
great
We'll
called-
never get around to it. but-
called price to.
Great. Now that you've adjusted your clip gain, the next thing we want to do is just cut out dead
I
air.
have about 1,000 of them.
So you're going to want to suspend the grouping we made. Command Shift G will suspend that. Command Shift G will unsuspend it. So you can see everything down here in groups. When it's grayed out, it's suspended. When it's not grayed out, it's not suspended. Cool. We're going to undo that. Solo this
I have
track.
about 1,000.
Let's just
I have about 1,000 of them.
There's a
in
little
in
mistake
shoebox
there.
under my bed. So I'm hoping they. That's a good idea. And Matt, this is a movie we should write. The guy who starts picking off people who have the cards, so his card.
two
goes
little
up in value.
mistakes. We'll
Like
erase
he
them.
starts going around and killing. We'll never get around to it, but price to move. Yes.
You don't need to go this hard on it. And then if you do triple click, selects all the tracks. And if I do a Command F, it will add fades. Now you'll notice all these little fades here. So you won't get like a pop. Because if there's a little piece of audio information there and you cut up against it, it will just kind of have to like pop it. All right, because the speaker, it's physically moving the speaker. So if there's a piece of information that says the speaker should be up here because the wave was moving like that, it will. And if you cut the movement from 0 to the top of the wave, the peak of the wave, and you cut it, there's no information from the 0 to the 1, so it'll just like shoot it up, and you'll get that pop. That's what that is. The fade basically fades it in really fast, so it kind of adds that piece of information. Cool. Let's do this next one now. For quick key to change the soloing, I just do Shift S. Shift S? Shift S, as you can see here. This is a shortcut for all of these tracks. So Shift S, Shift R is record, Shift I is input monitoring, Shift M is mute. So that makes life easy. All this information we don't need. We'll leave that breath in. Little piece of information here. Probably nothing, so let's get rid of it.
That's a great idea. We'll never do it, but it's a great idea. Yeah. Price to move. Like it.
Okay. Triple click. Command F, adding fades. Also, how am I zooming in and zooming out? If you're in keyboard focus mode here, by clicking this little yellow spot, R and T zooms in, R zooms out. Enter brings you back to the beginning. And we already did our fades, as you can see. Now, Command S. Let's do this one.
like that. And yeah. 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 It's called price to move.
That breath we can remove. Okay. Triple click. Command F. Bing, bong, boom. You can manually adjust fades. So let's remove a fade here by just going to the top left corner, doing that. Or let's undo it. Select it, then Command F. Or just hit F. So we can just leave that one in. Now let's listen to it again.
I have about 1,000 of them in a shoebox under my bed. So I'm hoping that's a good idea. And Matt, this is
You
a movie
hopefully
we should write,
shouldn't notice too much of a difference.
the guy who starts.
What we're
picking
trying to
off
do is
people
just
who have the
remove
cards, so his
unwanted
card goes up in value.
information.
Yeah.
Dead silence,
going around.
room noise.
It's a great
all
idea.
that
We'll
stuff.
never do it.
Yeah.
But it's
It's
a great
We'll
called-
never get around to it. but-
Called price
Yeah.
to move.
Price to move.
Price to
Yes.
move. Like it.
I have about 1,000 of them in
Yeah.
a shoebox.
Cool. Now that we did that, so let's say you did that for your hour-long podcast. We want to EQ. So the goal with this EQ, so we want to use a stock Pro Tools EQ here. So the goal with this EQ is to have it sound natural. We're not trying to process anything or sweeten anything. We want to get it to a natural sounding voice. So, first thing we do, high pass filter. Click it in. Let's bring that to around, I'd say 75, starting for a male voice. Female voice, you can go up to 100. I just do like around, split the difference around 80, and everyone can kind of do that. You can adjust the Q here, which is the aggressiveness of the slope. Or if you're doing a bell, this is a high pass filter, so it's just letting all the highs pass. The lows are getting cut. The highs are being passed. This is just how aggressive. Leave it a 6. Then for your you can add a shelf towards the end. We're just doing a couple things here. So
I have about 1,000
Keep it
of them
playing.
in a shoebox under my bed. So I'm hoping I have about 1,000 of them in a shoebox under my bed. So
let's do around
I'm hoping
10.
I have about 1,000 of them in a shoebox
sweetening
under my
here.
bed. So I'm hoping I have about 1,000 of
So
them.
a little
in
orange
in
guy.
shoebox under my bed.
You can do
So
a sweep.
I'm hoping I
Tighten
have
up the
about
Q.
1,000 of them in a shoebox under my bed.
So around
I'm hoping
400
I have about 1,000 of them in
is
a
where a lot of the
shoebox under my
mud
bed. So
is in the voice.
I'm hoping I have about 1,000
The
of them
boxiness.
in a shoebox under my bed. So I'm hoping
Sweep.
I have about 1,000 of them in a shoebox
And
under
try
my
to
bed.
listen
So
for it.
I'm hoping I have about 1,000 of them.
Then
in a
just
shoebox
cut it.
under my bed. So I'm hoping I have
Around
about
3
1,000
decibels.
of them in a shoebox under my bed. So I'm hoping I have about 1,000 of them in a shoebox under my bed. So I'm hoping I have
Let's
about
turn
1,000
this
of
guy
them
into
in
a bell.
shoebox under my bed. So
And
I'm
let's just
hoping
add a little
I have
bit
about
of
1,000
low
of them
end.
in a shoebox under my bed. So I'm hoping I have about 1,000 of
Loosen
them
that
in a
Q.
shoebox under my bed. So I'm hoping I have about
It's
1,000
before.
of them in a shoebox under my bed. So I'm
After.
hoping
Again,
I
we're
have
not
about
trying to
1,000 of them
hear
in
a difference. We're trying to
shoebox
just
under my
clean it
bed.
up.
So I'm hoping I
Around
have about
2K,
1,000 of
1K to
them in a
2K.
shoebox under my bed.
Tighten that
So
Q up.
I'm hoping I I have about 1,000 of them in a
Just
shoebox
bump up
under my
that
bed. So
presence.
I'm hoping they. I have about 1,000 of them in a shoebox under my
Before,
bed. So I'm
after.
hoping they. I have about 1,000 of them in a
Great.
shoebox under my
That's the
bed.
EQ.
So I'm hoping
Holding
they. I have about 1,000 of them in a
option
shoebox under my
and
bed.
clicking it.
So
Just copy
I'm
it to
hoping
all.
they. I have about 1,000
And then
of them
bypass them.
in a shoebox.
Just
under
holding
my bed.
command and
So
clicking
I'm
bypasses
hoping they.
them.
I have about
You can
1,000
see right
of
here.
them in a shoebox.
So bypass
under my
these
bed.
two,
So
because that will
I'm
basically
hoping
be
they.
the
I
like
have about
template
1,000 of them
that you'll
in
just
a
adjust for the
shoebox
other
under
ones.
my bed. So
Let's go
I'm
to
hoping they. I have about 1,000
compressor.
of them in a shoebox.
This
under
guy
my
comes
bed.
with
So I'm hoping they. I have about 1,000 of them in
Pro
in a
Tools.
shoebox under my bed. So
The
I'm
knee, you don't
hoping
really
they.
need to
I
do,
have
but
about
we'll just have
1,000
it be
of them
one.
in a
So basically, how does a compressor work? Let's go through that very quick. So compressor does compress the audio. That's all it does. I mean, it's in the name. It takes audio. This is the dynamic range of it from like the noise floor to the bottom to the top. If you go above the top, then you're clipping. If you're adding too much information, then it's distorting and clipping. We don't want that. We want to squish it so it's more averaged out and compressed. And all it's basically doing is we've all here's an example. We've all watched a movie, right? And there's loud parts too loud and quiet parts are too quiet. So when the guys are whispering to each other, you know, about defusing the bomb, like we need to do this, they're going to hear us. Oh no. You take the TV remote, we'll use my phone as example, and you turn up the volume to hear the whispering. But then, you know, 3, 2, 1, the bomb goes off, and it's very loud. Oh no, now it's too loud. You take that TV remote and you lower the volume. That's basically you being the compressor. So how does it work? In the plugins world, in the machine world, all it's doing is you're setting a threshold, and when the volume goes above that threshold, it turns it down. And all these parameters here explain how much and how fast to turn it down. But Joe, wait a minute. You said something about turning the volume up. Yes, that is the makeup gain. So we turn the whole thing up, but then have the threshold at a certain dB where it turns down, it's too loud. So basically, here's the whole thing. We turn the whole thing. My on camera. Here's the whole thing. We turn the whole thing up. Then we have the threshold turn it down. So you see what I just did? I just made it, instead of this, it's now this. It's also louder. So if we just turned it down, it would be lower. But then we raise it up with the makeup gain. I hope that makes sense. So let me just go through all the things here. This plugin is great to visualize it. So we have our threshold, when to turn it down. We have attack and release. I'll explain that in a second. Ratio, how much to turn it down by. So the ratio is, do we turn it down? So if it's 4 to 1, 4.6 to 1, it's going to go down 4.6 to every 1 it goes above. Makeup gain is just how much more dB do we add to raise it up. Attack is how fast after it passes this threshold to turn it down. And release is how quickly do we turn off the compressor once the volume goes under this threshold. So for the voice, I like to keep it a fast attack. So let's say 1 milliseconds with a bit of a slower release. We can go, 40 or 50. This is generic. And the knee is just the curve of, instead of just a hard turn on for the hitting that ratio, it's just slightly going over, the waterfall. It's making it a slope as opposed to just a hard fall off, right? So make it 1 decibel. You can visually see it here. Let's make it 1 decibel, just a slight one. A lot of compressors, excuse me, don't even have a knee, or they have a knee already built in. You can't adjust it. And then the dry mix here is how much do we add it into the mix. So wet is the information's coming in here, the input's coming in, going through all this, and you're 100% getting out whatever this has processed. Dry is none of this affects what the output is. 50% is just 50% of this, what it comes in, is affected. So you can adjust that. So let's
I have about 1,000
listen to
of
this
them
host
in
again.
in a shoebox under my bed.
So the goal is
I'm hoping I have about 1,000 of them in a shoebox under my bed.
to
So I'm hoping
let's just
I have
hit
about
10
1,000 of them
decibels and make
in a
it
shoebox under my bed. So
pretty consistent.
I'm
See how
hoping
all over the place
I have
he
about
is.
1,000 of them in a shoebox.
So
under
let's
my,
actually use
the
this
guy who
piece of
starts
dialogue
picking off
here.
people who have the cards, so his
So we
card
can
goes up in value. Like he starts going around and killing
see
the
how
guy
low
who
it
starts
gets.
picking off people who have the cards, so his card goes up in value. Like he starts going around and killing the guy who starts picking off people who have the cards, so his card goes up in value. Like he starts going around
And now let's listen to other
that's a good idea. And Matt, this is
See
a movie
how much
we
it's
should write.
attenuating it? This is the volume it's going
That's
down
a good
by
idea. And
after it
Matt, this is a
reaches
movie we should write. That's a good
threshold.
idea. And I have about 1,000 of them in a shoebox under my bed.
So I think that sounds pretty good. So this is it before.
I have about 1,000 of them
This is
in a
before
shoebox under my bed. So I'm hoping
it's bypass.
that's
so
a good
look at this
idea.
one.
And Matt, this is a movie we should write.
Turn off the bypass.
The guy who starts
It's
picking off
squished more.
people who have the cards, so his card
It sounds
goes up in
fatter.
value. Like he starts.
Now
going
we
around
have a
and killing.
sweetened process sound.
I have about 1,000
We've
of them
left
in a shoebox.
the world of
under
a
my bed,
natural
so
sound.
I'm hoping
And now we're into a podcast
that's a
audio
good idea.
recording
And Matt,
radio
this is
sound.
a movie we should write.
Great. To save ourselves time, just hold Option and copy that over. Now, let's turn off the bypass for that one. Let's EQ this
It's a great
area.
idea. We'll never do it, but it's a great idea.
You
Yeah.
don't really need to focus on
It's a great
these
idea.
guys.
We'll
Honestly,
never
the
do it, but
mud,
It's a great idea.
because everyone's got a different part of the voice.
It's
for
a
the
great
muds.
idea. We'll never do it, but it's a great idea. Yeah.
Oops.
It's a great idea. We'll never do it, but it's a great idea.
Yeah. Again, we're only looking at a couple
It's
decibels.
a great idea. We'll never do it, but it's a
You know,
great idea.
if you're this,
Yeah.
no. Then
It's
you
a
had
great
a
idea. We'll
really
never
bad
do it, but
recording.
It's a great idea. Yeah. It's a great idea. We'll never do it, but it's a great
All
idea.
right, let's open the compressor. Let's see.
It's a great idea. We'll never do it, but it's a
Turn
great
off
idea.
this.
Yeah. It's a great
I
idea.
like to
We'll
start
never do
top,
it,
work
but
my
it's a
way
great idea.
down.
Yeah. It's a great idea. We'll
Pick something that's more in the middle. Just touch the top.
It's a great idea. We'll never do it, but it's a great idea.
All right, let's listen to this.
It's a great idea.
This is
We'll
what it
never do
originally
but
sounded
it's
like?
A great idea. Yeah.
So we're looking at this meter.
Price to move. Like it.
Turn off the bypass.
That's a great idea. We'll
Now
never
look at
do
this
it,
guy.
but it's a great idea.
Better sounding, more
Yeah.
consistent sounding.
Price to move. Like it.
Bam, 2 done. One more. Let's pick this guy.
Yeah, it's called Price to Move. Yeah, it's called Price to Move. Yeah, it's called Price to Move. Yeah, it's called
He's a little tinny.
Price to Move.
Let's give him
Yeah,
some.
it's called Price to Move.
A little
Yeah,
more low
it's
end.
called Price to Move.
3.6.
Yeah.
Copy this boy over.
Yeah, it's called Price to Move. Yeah, it's called
Turn down the makeup
Price to
gain.
Move. Yeah, it's called Price to Move. Yeah, it's called Price to Move.
See, he doesn't
Yeah,
even need
it's
much
called Price to Move.
makeup gain. Here's the. So that.
Yeah, like that.
This is it. On. Just more
Yeah.
consistent. So let's listen to the whole thing again.
I have about 1,000 of them in a shoebox under my bed. So I'm hoping that's a good idea. And Matt, this is a movie we should write. Is the guy who starts picking off people who have the cards, so his card goes up in value.
Yeah,
Like he starts going around and
That's a
killing.
great idea. We'll never do it,
Yeah,
but it's a
it's
great
We'll
idea.
never get around to it. but-
called Price
Yeah.
to Move.
Price to move.
Price
Yes.
to move. Like it.
Great. EQ'd. to make it sound more natural and to just kind of remove that noise of the rooms. Compressed to make everything sound more consistent per track, per individual track basis. Sounds a lot better. I like to add just one more EQ.
I have about 1,000 of them in a shoebox.
Honestly,
under
just
my bed,
copy it.
so I'm hoping I have about 1,000 of them in a shoebox under my bed. So
Just to
I'm
kind of add a little more zest. I'm kind of flying through it here. Obviously, I spend more time.
That's a great idea. We'll never do it, but that's a great idea. Yeah.
All we're doing now is we're sweetening.
Yeah, it's called price to move. Yeah, it's called price to move.
So now we're EQing after the compressor. So what's coming out of the compressor, we're EQing because it's not being affected by the compression that's happening. So the EQ before this one here goes into the compressor and affects what the compressor does because it's being put into the compressor. It's almost like if I make a mixed drink and then put the ice in as opposed to putting the ice in after. I don't know if that makes sense. That might be a bad analogy. I don't drink much. So anyways, this EQ is EQing the sound coming out of the compressor. And you can see I just basically pulling the same one, but I'd be obviously doing a little more tweaks to it. But now I'm not trying to make it sound natural. I'm trying to make it sound like, like a radio thing, like a podcast thing.
Like that.
1,000 of them in a shoebox under my bed. So I'm hoping that's a good idea. And Matt, this is a movie we should write. Is the guy who starts picking off people who have the cards, so his card goes.
Great. Now let's just bypass everything and let's listen to it again.
Like that.
I have about 1,000 of them in a shoebox under my bed. So I'm hoping that's a good idea. And Matt, this is a movie we should write. Is the guy who starts
fuller,
picking off
it's fatter,
people who have
and it's
the
not
cards,
a
so
lot.
his card goes
It's a
up in
little
value.
bit.
Yeah.
Of course, you guys
It's
can
a great
break all
idea.
of these
We'll
rules and do things how you want to do it. These are more guidelines, really. Yeah. So feel free to just take these as just like steps you can start with, and then you can break these however you want to break them. Okay. Now that we have it EQ'd to make it sound natural, compressed to make it sound fatter, to make it sound more consistent, EQ'd again to sweeten it up, to add some polish to it. Let's put it all into one auxiliary track and then compress that track. That will be called a bus compressor because we're compressing everything on the bus. Everything on the bus are these 3 tracks. So highlight the 3 tracks, hit both Option and Shift, click your output, new track, stereo. Even though they're all mono, I mean, you can do it. I guess you can do it mono. Some people like to do it stereo because if you have like sound effects also going into it, which I don't even recommend because I like keeping vocal tracks by itself. Anyways, VCL bus is what I like to name it. Oops, probably should have put this down here. If you ever want to change track colors like these 3, if you double click just this little bar right here, brings up the thing. Your boy loves purple, so I do everything in purple. I like to make all my buses gray, no colors, because no audio, no colors is in my mind. But we're going to do red because I have this out to OBS thing. Let's actually minimize it just because let's not focus on this. But okay, let's make this red. Yoink. You know what? It's around Halloween. Let's go orange. Okay, now
like that.
I have about 1,000 of them.
Unmute this. Mute everything. Everything's running through this guy.
I'm hoping that's a good idea. And Matt, this is a movie we should write.
So plugins, dynamics, and let's add a compressor. Or actually, I'm sorry, a limiter. Is this a waves limiter or is this a... Oh, no, this is a waves thing. Okay. All right. Here's a pro limiter. Took me a second to find it. I forgot what the stock Avid limiter was. Great. Now let's just add a limiter. What is a limiter? A limiter is just a compressor that is literally a brick wall. You cannot go above what you set for a ceiling. So I'm going to set my ceiling at 1, I guess. It depends on whatever streaming service you use. Some people like to go 0.1, which is crazy. I don't know. That freaks me out. But yeah, 1 decibel will be fine.
I have about 1,000 of them in a shoebox under my bed. So I'm hoping they. That's a good idea. And Matt, this is a movie we should write.
Obviously
the guy who starts picking off people who have the cards, so his card goes up in value.
Yeah,
like he starts going around and.
That's a great idea. We'll never do it.
Yeah,
but
we'll never get around to it.
Called Price to Move.
Price to move.
Price to move. Like it.
Great. You see your short-term LUFs and your long-term LUFs. You want to hit around 14 LUFs for a podcast. That's the standard. So
like that.
I have about 1,000 of them in a shoebox under my bed. So I'm hoping they. That's a good idea. And Matt, this is a movie we should write. Is the guy who starts picking off people who have the cards, so his card goes up in value.
Yeah,
like he starts going around and.
That's a great idea. We'll never do it.
Yeah,
but
we'll never get around to it.
Called Price to Move.
Price to move.
Price to move. Like it.
So that's basically it. You play with that. You play around with the limiter until you hit around 14. That's kind of what you're aiming for. But that's everything. And then you export it. Just make sure you select. What I like to do is I'd hit enter. I add a memory location. So you hit enter and then hit enter again by the numeric part of your keyboard. This enter. Or you hit, if you're on a keyboard, if you're on your laptop keyboard, it's FN and then enter. And that adds a memory location. What I like to do is I always have I do 2 asterisks and then top. That's always the beginning. And then at the end where I want it to end, add another one, end. So I have a top and I have an end. And if you hit Command 5, it brings up memory locations. 5 not on above the letters, 5 on the numeric keyboard. If you don't have a numeric keyboard, like an extended keyboard, Windows, memory locations. Then just top, hold shift down, click end, that selects it, and then do a Command Option B for bounce. And then you can bounce it. And then you bounce your thing. If not, you can go File here and then Bounce Mix. Same thing. You can do Wave and then add an MP3. So you have both a Wave and an MP3. Or you can just do MP3 if you want. Because if you're uploading it to, I don't know, Captivate or whatever thing you're using to upload, you just click Bounce here. And then you can do your bit rate. Some places you upload have file size limits. Just know 320 is going to be the biggest. So play with this. There's a client I work with that I do it for 192. And we do 44.1 at 192 because they have to have all of their episodes be under 100 megabytes. And their episodes are around 60 to 80 minutes long. So that brings us to like, I don't know, 70 to 90 megabytes. So if I do 192 at 44.1, not 48, we get around 70 to 90 megabytes. And then you can fill out all your information here for the ID3 tag info, which I rarely do. Nobody ever asks me to do it. Anyways, that is it. So this is just the dialogue editing, but this can also be the same for music and stuff like that. Just know to follow your ear and follow what sounds good to you. Don't be like, oh, but Joe said I have to do it this way or whatever. Just follow what sounds good to you. Obviously, for a more professional sounding podcast, I'm doing stuff with RX, Isotope, doing a lot of cleaning up. I'm playing with noise reduction. I'm removing plosives. really going in and editing out the nitty gritty. I'm removing a lot of the ums and if you're doing dialogue editing and stuff like that. For that, I'd say just get a audio engineer and hit this guy up. But if you just have a podcast you're doing yourself with friends, some people don't even do the cuts. If the room sounds good enough or you want to have that raw sound, just leave them in. It's fine. And just use something like a noise gate to attenuate the room. With that, I hope this was useful. I'm Joe Leonardo. And if you need any more help with editing your podcast, feel free to reach out, or just more information on Pro Tools, stuff like that. I don't plan on making more videos, so don't wait for anything. But this is the basics for editing a podcast. But yeah, that's it. Thank you very much.